So ladies, gentlemen, welcome back to a brand new news roundup video, and today we are darting all over the place with new trailers for Fallout Season 2, Monarch Legacy of Monsters Season 2, new looks at Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, and some DCU tidbits that we're going to get into a little bit later. But of course, before we get into some DCU tidbits later and the other things, we need to start today's video with the DCU's biggest news that kind of came out of nowhere, and that is all about the villain for James Gunn's Man of Tomorrow. Shout out to those of you who are in the stream when this news dropped, and I spoke about it there, but we're gonna dive into it here and everything else. So if you go on to enjoy this video, consider hitting that like and hype button to help support the news roundups. And of course, if you're enjoying news videos like this and what I do here on the channel, apparently over 40% of you who regularly watch these videos aren't subscribed, so consider subscribing today. But yes, let's dive into the villain for Man of Tomorrow. So this news is coming out of The Wrap. Superman and Lex Luthor will team up against uber villain Brainiac in Man of Tomorrow, The Wrap has exclusively learned. Now, first of all, one thing I want to get out the way that I was asked quite a bit about on my stream is, okay, so how reliable is this? Is this 100% confirmed, Boba? Technically, no, not 100% confirmed by DC Studios or James Gunn himself, although, like, again, knowing my luck, James Gunn hasn't commented on it yet, but maybe by the time I post this video, he might have, which means you may see a future Boba. I don't know, but the long and short of it is essentially that The Wrap definitely isn't like BillyBob'sReviews.com or NewsScoops.com from down the street. They're not exactly like the Hollywood Reporter or anything, but for an outlet where your ambition is to only become more trusted, more reputable, and whatnot, to put out a story like this and for you to be completely wrong about it would be incredibly stupid and ballsy. So they must be very, 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 very sure that this is the case. No, again, I can't confirm it, but this is looking to be incredibly likely. I would still maybe advise take it with a grain of salt, but if you want my thoughts on like the reliability, those are my thoughts on it. I would say I'm leaning towards this absolutely being true. It's something all of us have been vibing anyway. And there is even more information as well, but first of all, I guess my reaction. My reaction to Brainiac being the villain for Man of Tomorrow. I could honestly go on about this for another 2 hours, and I literally did in my stream yesterday. I do think Brainiac, I've always said I can see him being more than just a one-movie villain, because Brainiac can be so formidable that it almost feels like to maybe introduce him in Man of Tomorrow. I don't know exactly how that's going to be done. Again, we can get into a whole separate discussion series about this the more we learn, hopefully soon. But, you know, is it going to be poking the bear with the more metahumans that are dropped off on Salvation, the bear being Brainiac, and Brainiac kind of is like, who's been dropping off metas on my planet? Or something, I don't know. But for him to like be introduced maybe that way or whatever in Man of Tomorrow, Lex and Superman to unite against a much bigger threat, to be one and done by the end of the movie, I don't know. I would still kind of cope and hope that, oh, that was just a Brainiac drone you faced. But there's all kinds of things. And I recommend checking out a video that I uploaded very recently saying things I want to see in Man of Tomorrow. And quite a bit of that video was kind of going off of the assumption that, lo and behold, the villain of Man of Tomorrow would be Brainiac. And I get into things like, okay, with Brainiac, well, does this mean that in the DCU's history, could we see the whole bottled city of Kandor? Does Supergirl already know about this? Could this be a plot thread put into the movie? Because that would have been taken before Argo City got yeeted out into space. There's all kinds of things that could happen as a result of this. And I can't wait to dive into my reaction and fleshing out ideas even more of where that could go. But that is definitely a good starting point of a video if you want further Boba expanded thoughts about Brainiac. We did cover some interesting territory on the stream last night. Some of you guys were suggesting, what if Brainiac did indeed create the quantum unfolding chamber? What if the doorways in the QUC are really Brainiac's way of accessing each kind of bottled city that he has? Trust me, I know this is entering the territory of like fan goggles, and what I mean by fan goggles is when you kind of put on these glasses where you just start spurting out ideas and you don't really think too much about it. But you never know, right? You never know. And it wouldn't surprise me if the quantum unfolding chamber is something that is Brainiac oriented. But then, now we can get into like, okay, which origin of Brainiac do we want? Do we want a literal alien from Kolu? Do we want the Kryptonian AI? I feel like, as I always say here, adaptations don't copy and paste. So I know that Gunn, I just know he's going to do like an influence of probably many of these things. I do lean on the side of wanting something that looks very humanoid, part cyborg, if you will. Maybe something that is based from the days of Krypton, an AI that was around even and knew Jor-El. Like, that could lead to interesting confrontations between Superman and Brainiac in the movie. It's all of this stuff that could get very head-fecky with Superman, and it's because the AI of Brainiac, or whatever Gunn might do here, if it's the more AI-oriented version, would have been around since then, and is maybe on this very extreme mission to seek, to preserve, to, find Kryptonians. Reminds me of Superman, Brainiac. There's just so much, and that excites me. I would say that I wouldn't want Gunn to go to kind of, like, I wouldn't want a lot of levity with Brainiac. Sure, you can introduce the levity that we had with Superman, even though we know, I think it's been said that the tone of this film isn't going to be like Superman. So I would say with Brainiac, I really want him to be terrifying, insidious, like the approach of him, the intimidating factor of him. People were talking about, could we get a post-credit scene in Supergirl? And I was like, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised. Like, Gunn has talked about post-credit scenes where he doesn't really want to do them all the time, but he wouldn't rule them out. If we did get a mid-credit scene at the end of Supergirl, because obviously the movie after that, the next main kind of Superman saga one is Man of Tomorrow. Can you imagine a very kind of, and this is what we were talking about on the stream last night, a very Lovecraftian, horrific presence. Like, the camera is, in the big black void of space. Maybe some stars can be seen. But then, in a kind of very upfront Star Wars shot, you have Brainiac's ship. I'm thinking like Krypton inspired. Like, that was really husk and freaky. And it's like really like close to the camera, and the camera starts panning and like kind of rotating. And then you see like the blue kind of light of Earth emerge. Like, imagine that kind of shot, that kind of Lovecraftian fear of this Brainiac. That's the kind of energy I'd want. That would be really, really, really cool, and would justify the necessity for like Luthor and Superman having to team up, and why you'd want to spring Luthor after the kind of horrific crimes he committed during Superman. But we are hearing about some casting options already. Now, the first thing comes from Grace Randolph. Now, again, I mean no disrespect here to Grace, but she has been wrong in the past, so I do take this very much so with a grain of salt. She says, I hear one of these actors have tested for Brainiac, and it would make me so happy if he got it, but they're still auditioning more actors. Can you guess which one? And then we had Apocalyptic Horseman. Quote tweet Grace Randolph, and I highly rate Apocalyptic Horseman. He is a part of Nexus Point News. They knock it out the park when it comes to DC Studios scoops, like seriously. And he says, since it's pretty obvious, I can confirm I heard Klaus Bang too, but there's a handful of others who are going to be tested, so it's undecided. So, Klaus Bang, I've seen him in stuff, and I think he's good, but I have to admit, with this one, I do really, and I'm not saying these actors aren't, popular or haven't had work, but for me, and I don't want to, I kind of resent the whole typical straight go-to fan casting, like, oh, Jenna Ortega needs to be Raven kind of thing. But with Brainiac, man, I do think you need to get a casting on the level of, and this is very typical, but I feel like people would love it if Michael C. Hall was bagged for Brainiac, if Matt Smith was bagged for Brainiac, if Mads Mikkelsen was bagged for Brainiac. And I love Bill Skarsgård, and I don't like how much he's tossed around for every bloody character ever. But at the same time, I thought, you know what? Bill Skarsgård as a Brainiac iteration could be pretty good. So I'm just thinking, I feel like in the DCU... Sure, I'm not saying Rachel Brosnahan wasn't popular. Obviously, David Corenswet was like breaking out slowly but surely with some other things that he'd done, from Hollywood to Twisters and whatnot. But Nicholas Hoult was like kind of the biggest thing we've got so far. I feel like with Brainiac, man, you need to rival. You really need to kind of rival that. Again, you don't need bloody Brad Pitt or someone like that, but I do think we need, like, Matt Smith I'd be really happy with, Mads Mikkelsen, like something on that level. But let me know what you think. Stuff like this will probably be developing at a rapid pace, maybe. So I do apologize just in case, as I'm uploading this, the blessing and curse happens on the channel and something else is said. But I guess for now, I would love to know your thoughts on this. I know it is something we half expected, but at the same time, it could have easily have been like, hey, what if it's Mongol? What if it's something else? So with Brainiac being seemingly a pretty sure thing here, let me know your thoughts on it down in the comments below. We are going to get into some other DCU tidbits that you guys have wanted my thoughts on over the past few days. But up next, now I want to take this opportunity to cover a couple of trailers that released yesterday that I am pretty excited to talk about. So let's start with the Fallout Season 2 trailer. And man, this made me pretty damn happy, and it feels like a lot of Fallout fans are happy here. First of all here, with my reaction, like given the ending credits of Fallout Season 1, where Vegas looked to be pretty abandoned and, you know, quite a rundown version of itself, it seemed for a second that by the time Lucy and the Ghoul got to New Vegas, it would be just that. Like, not necessarily the New Vegas that we remember from the game, but this trailer gives us a look at how it really is still going with the various shots that we get, from seeing people kind of tinkering around in Freeside, the very familiar welcome to the strip sign there. Like, people are still there in New Vegas. So, you know, don't get me wrong, the previous teaser showed us a Deathclaw, so I'm pretty sure, like, New Vegas isn't exactly what we remembered from the game and isn't as populated as, you know, also the Kings appear to be quite feral ghoul versions of themselves, and I'm still hoping that that's only a portion of them, as we do kind of see these dudes here busting out some Elvis moves. But it's great to see that it is still, like, I don't know if I'll quite say flourishing, but I was worried, and I think a lot of other people were getting a bit worried that it would just be completely and utterly abandoned. But speaking of that Deathclaw, it does look like we have the Strip, part of New Vegas, being inhabited by this Deathclaw, possibly other Deathclaws, and we do see Maximus racing towards it. By the way, I love the power armor NCR Ranger helmet combo here. But we also do see a bunch of people behind the Ghoul, Maximus, looking like there could be this kind of effort to retake the Strip from the Deathclaw or Deathclaws that are inhabiting the main Strip. But I also do think that given Lucy isn't here in this moment, it probably means that they might be trying to free her from the vault that her dad has likely put her in, that we got a glimpse of in the first teaser. And then we even see her trying to escape in this trailer wearing this yellow dress from the first teaser. So another very intriguing shot was seeing this Securitron screen, which implies perhaps it does lean more on the side of the House Always Wins ending than others, but I still think they're taking a combination of things to influence maybe a bit of a unique path forward in this adaptation. Speaking of Mr. House, I also dig how it isn't exactly a static face, similar to just various other things in the trailer, like New Vegas isn't a one-to-one adaptation of the game, but as I always say, with adaptations, not copying and pasting, and just so far, with any differences that we've seen in the Fallout TV show and the glimpses that we get here, I have confidence that they'll handle these slight differences with care and just, if anything, ambition. Then with other things, I'm really looking forward to getting into more of the echoes of the Ghoul's past and just how this ties into his present day motivations. Like, Walton Goggins is fantastic in this role, and you know, that line of him saying that he's kept himself alive for one reason, to find his family, this is exactly what they were talking about behind the scenes, getting to see a bit more of the vulnerability to the man who was wastelanded for 200 years, as he says, losing himself in an effort to kind of get back to himself, and that is the man who had a family before the bombs dropped. But speaking of, I think this shot of Lucy and the Ghoul entering this vault could very well be the vault that he knows that his wife and child were left in when the bombs dropped, which has long since been abandoned, which doesn't exactly look great, but obviously that doesn't guarantee their death either, considering the Ghoul here is, like, as he said, been wastelanding for 200 years. This is when we hear a voice.
Well then, you're gonna need friends.
And oh my god, I don't know who this is, but that sounds like a super mutant, and anyone who's heard any of my previous thoughts on the Fallout TV show so far, you know That's one of the biggest things I want them to do, is just super mutants. Like, we've got all of these other things that they've brought into the show really accurately, but I want to see a super mutant. So it could be a super mutant, it could be this cloaked figure. We're going to have to wait and see. Other things are more like looks at the Brotherhood of Steel Civil War. We've got Kumail Nanjiani as an elder or something, and I think his comedic acting chops actually fit in fantastically with the Fallout world. We get to see some remnants of the NCR that are still kicking around. They even seem familiar with the Ghouls past, which is interesting. And then with other factions and whatnot, we see the Caesar's Legion presence, which is, you know, a massive camp with even a portion of their camp exploding. And we get to see Macaulay Culkin's character, who seems to be pretty high up in the Legion, considering he's killing one of his own dudes here. Other things, my God, Lucy with a power fist. Like, what more could you want as a Fallout fan? I feel like we're eating good here. It's crazy how close it is now. Let me know your thoughts on this trailer if you're a fan of the first series. I know plenty of you haven't played the games, because I asked you guys that question last time. Some of you have, but some of you, like, never played the games, saw season 1, loved it. So let me know your thoughts on what we got to see here with the season 2 trailer. Now, as for the other Season 2 trailer, well, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow MonsterVerse fans, let's talk about Monarch Legacy of Monsters Season 2. Now, I don't know how many of you know this, because I haven't really spoken about it on the channel much other than live streams, but I really enjoyed Season 1 of Monarch Legacy of Monsters. So, you know, seeing this trailer for Season 2 release definitely got me amped up to get back into this world again with the perspective that this show just brings to the MonsterVerse. So immediately, I love how it opened up with just, you know, a bit of a vibe with people surfing, to then have it completely halted with this warning put out there that this is a high alert Titan area, and then boom, the surfers being bombarded by some crab muto-esque things in a very insidious way. Like, already within 20 seconds of this teaser trailer for season 2, it's kind of like, okay, well, this sets the tone. And hell yeah, we're back into the MonsterVerse now. Now, up next, we get a few shots that kind of build up to that reveal a little bit later. So this first shot of people running for their lives appears to be them fleeing from Kong. When I first saw this, I was like, is that a different kind of Titan? But no, like, you can tell that's Kong. And given the other shots of the cast in the trailer, most likely kind of reacting to what is likely a part of that same sequence with Kong we see, well, if we combine that with the official synopsis that teases Season 2 will pick up with the fate of Monarch and the world hanging in the balance. The dramatic saga reveals buried secrets that reunite our heroes and villains on Kong's Skull Island, and a new, mysterious village where a mythical titan rises from the sea. The ripple effects of the past make waves in the present day, blurring the bonds between family, friend, and foe, all with the threat of a titan event on the horizon. So, as you could probably gather, this is likely set more or less right after the ending of Season 1, just, you know, given how Apex have been screwing around with the portals to the Hollow Earth. Everyone came back, as we know, but were obviously pretty surprised to learn where they were, which is when we got that final shot of Kong. So yeah, people running for their lives here from a pissed off Kong, you can kind of get it, especially with this shot here. Like, there could be people getting to the point of escaping in a helicopter, but then again, maybe they've tried to attack Kong with some of the fire that's in the background there, but that would just be bloody futile and would only piss him off even more. Either way, it looks like there's going to be a fairly explosive aftermath to the finale of Season 1 in Episode 1 of Season 2. Now, this isn't like a massive trailer because we just get some very brief looks, but I was a big fan of Kurt Russell and Wyatt Russell in Season 1, so just knowing that your boy Lee Shaw didn't die in his sacrifice to save the others from the underground just makes me very happy. I'm also just intrigued to learn how he gets back and how that could affect the timeline even more, because, like, for all we know, he could pop out and the present day scenes could skip forward even more from the timeline of the show and the movies, obviously. Now, as for Wyatt Russell, well, it looks like we're seeing more of him in the past. So that's really fascinating to me because it felt like a lot of that story was already explored and like obviously connected to present day Lee Shaw scenes. So like, I just want to know like what we're going to explore in the past. And then at the end, it's like we've got a kraken like squid monster titan going after Lee Shaw. Like I assume it's connected to the same scene, which is awesome. But as for like what the heck is going on here, I'm not sure, but that has to be what the synopsis was teasing with regards to, you know, a new mysterious village where a mythical titan rises from the sea. This is probably the same kraken that has been told in tales where it sunk ships throughout the centuries. Like that's this one. And you got Lee Shaw being like, oh my god. But with that said and done, let me know your thoughts on our first proper look at Monarch Legacy of Monsters Season 2. Now, just before we get into some other DCU tidbits, we got a new look at The Odyssey. Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey from Empire magazine. Like this cover here, which is pretty sweet, with Matt Damon front and center as Odysseus there. Speaking of Odysseus, we've got all of these extra looks as well. And I have to say, guys, I mean, hey, it's Christopher Nolan. It's kind of easy to kind of glaze anything that guy's going to do next. But this, the excitement for this film is very palpable, especially Nolan tackling, a story about Greek mythology and the journey Odysseus goes on. And the ways Nolan is going to be really crafty and probably ambiguous about that and God knows what else. That has me hyped enough. Like, obviously, the cast as well. I don't even need to get started on the cast. I mean, you already had me at, like, Christopher Nolan mixed or plus Greek mythology. And then you have Empire magazine talking to Matt Damon saying things like, Nolan's latest is exactly what you want of a summer movie. Given everything the legendary director has at his disposal, it should be the most massively entertaining film. It should feel mythic. I can say without hyperbole that it was the best experience of my career, the actor enthuses. Now, I know whenever I read stuff like that out, people are like, well, of course the actor would say that. Of course Matt Damon would say that. But, I do believe it. A lot of people have a lot of, like, the cast included, have a lot of passion about this movie, and it is cool to start seeing more of it in the way we are here from Empire Magazine. Now, as for Empire Magazine, apparently, according to MCU Film News here, going into the Marvel side just for 2 seconds, Daredevil Born Again Season 2 will be featured in the next issue, released on November 20th. So let's look forward to that, because the only reason I didn't finish off covering bloody Daredevil Born Again was because I went on my honeymoon and I just couldn't cover it. But looking forward to getting locked and loaded with Season 2, with Season 2 being the show that everyone wanted to make from, like, day dot. Like, so obviously we're all expecting better than Season 1. Not trying to throw Season 1 in the garbage can or anything. I'm just saying, like, we all know that had creative hurdles. La-di-da-da, Season 2 is creatively driven from the get-go. So, looking forward to cover more of Daredevil Born Again. But as for the remainder of the DCU tidbits, we have here from DC Film News, well, from the Hollywood Reporter's interview of Frank Grillo, Man of Tomorrow will shoot in the UK and Atlanta, according to Frank Grillo, who says Rick Flag Sr. plays a major role in the Superman sequel. My character, Rick Flag Sr., is a big part of the sequel story, so I'm excited about it. Now, I keep seeing a lot of outcry with this, being like, wait, why? What was he doing? It's like, guys, are you forgetting that he's the bloody head of Argus? He's the guy who struck up this deal with Luthor, to move him to a prison closer to Metropolis. Obviously, he's going to be the one to facilitate, this potential immunity deal if Lex Luthor helps out with this much, much bigger threat being most likely, according to reports, Brainiac. And, I just feel like I feel like because of how Frank Grillo's Rick Flag Sr. turned in Peacemaker Season 2, which there's a criticism I agree with. Obviously, his turn to just completely being the way he was in the final couple of episodes, like cackling as his Argus agents were dying, probably should have been baked out a little bit longer, and now people just kind of hate him. Let me ask you guys the question. Are you still able to enjoy Rick Flag Sr. now? Or like, would you say it's more for you don't like the character because they've made him deliberately unlikable? Like, that's, again, the intention. Or do you actually just not like Frank Grillo as well? Also from DC Film News here, but also from really Nexus Point News, they came out with a couple of additional details about the whole DC crime series that we're getting. Basically saying that, yes, Wendell Pierce, obviously Perry White, Michaela Hoover, who plays Cat Grant, Beck Bennett, Christopher McDonald are set to appear. David Corran Sweat and Rachel Brosnahan are not expected to appear. I still hope, like, okay, so first of all, Perry White, everyone like that, part of the Daily Planet, you know, if you got Jimmy doing this investigation about villains and mostly Grodd in the Daily Planet, yes, you absolutely expect some of those faces to be there. I still think they should try and get at least like Lois Lane. And now I've seen some of your comments from when I said that before. Some of you guys were like, but then, you know, this is about Jimmy. This, you know, you don't want to take away from his story. I'm not saying to take away from his story. I'm talking like, you know, maybe in episode 1, you have like this very minor kind of appearance from Lois. And some of you may be like, well, what's the point then? It's still just nice, like peppering in there, like, hey, this character's doing that thing. Like, again, 47 seconds where Jimmy goes to her about wanting to pursue this case. And because, as we've heard Rachel Brosnahan say as well in the past, like, Lois is kind of like mothering, in a way, like reporter mode wise, like Jimmy. Like, you know, Jimmy looks up to her, she kind of mentors him a little bit. So her encouraging him to pursue this would be a cool scene. And then you don't have to see her again until like episode 7, or like if there was a moment in the show where after all is said and done, Jimmy actually has a scene with Superman in the finale or something, because we don't have Superman's best pal Jimmy Olsen established in the movie. You know, maybe like if we had a scene of him being given the watch because he's putting himself at danger going after and pursuing Gorilla Grodd. Like, I'm just saying you can do something. I'm talking like barely a minute screen time, you know, where I do think that would be worth it. I really do, rather than some people who may say or hear that idea and think, well, what's the point then? I think people would still appreciate that. And then lastly, Alan Ritchson reveals he is in talks for a messier role in the DCU. A lot of people have been asking me about this, and my thoughts haven't really changed too much, believe it or not, because Alan Ritchson says, I described to them the kind of personality that I'd want to play and what that would mean to their world. I want to play somebody a little dirtier than your typical clean-cut protagonist. And yeah, like that's what I mean as well. Like, despite how many people are on the Batman hype train for him, I'm like, look, I get kind of what you see there, but it's just, you know, he's not giving me that. Like, that's not who I personally want for DCU Batman, or the vibes rather. But there are so many other characters that Alan Ritchson would be applicable to. Like, again, like an easy one to go to that I've been saying for years, and it feels like everyone's now saying it, is Wildcat. I feel like the funny thing is I could imagine him turning over the hourglass and being Hourman as well. I mean, I think he's way more of a better fit for Wildcat, but there's so many characters that Alan Ritchson could play. I also understand that he wants to play somebody a little bit more dirtier than your typical clean-cut protagonist, so I do wonder what characters they have been exploring. I see people mention characters like Apollo and whatnot, but I think, you know, what about Alan Ritchson being a villain? I've seen people say, oh, he should be Mongol, but I don't know. I really don't know, but I do know that he should be in the DCU. And I'm looking forward to see whatever character he could play. But that is about everything I'm going to get into in today's whopping news roundup, ladies and gentlemen. We have covered quite a range of topics, so, you know what I'm going to say? I would just love to see what you guys have to say down in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts on each story. Let me know your thoughts on my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, I'd greatly appreciate it if you left a like, consider hyping it, consider subscribing. But until next time, guys, I'm going to love you and leave you. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.